I am raising the question of Elizabeth Warren's mental state, that being Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, in response to her raising the question of the mental state of President Trump after that phony op-ed piece was run in the New York Times, which she says was represented a cabal of people in the White House who were questioning the president's temperament and fitness. She said that basically she's calling for them to invoke the 25th Amendment, which would claim that which would essentially replace the president. It would be a virtual coup d'etat. In fact, it would be a coup d'etat in that the president would be removed from office because people around him would feel that he could not function. And the whole thing is questionable. Nobody even knows who wrote this piece. And, obviously President Trump is functioning just fine. I mean, anyone who observes that can know that. I mean, he may have his personality quirks, of course, and he tends to wear those out on his sleeve, as it were, as opposed to other presidents who have been more managed by people. And but nevertheless, everything is fine. And for her to go out with a statement like this as a sitting senator is really borders on sedition. But I would think that therefore it's appropriate to take a look at her mental health. Is she insane? And I think that people say that Elizabeth Warren is brilliant and great and all that. And I would note that and whether or not she is of course debatable. But for the sake of argument, let's say she is. There have been a lot of great leaders in the 20th century in particular. And when I say great, I don't mean good. I mean evil great. Great socialist left-wing leaders like Stalin and Adolf Hitler and Mao Zedong, Lenin. I would add Leon Trotsky to that list, who were brilliant, who are highly functional people, who quite efficient, actually. But I think that you could argue that they were all completely out to lunch mentally. I mean, these people were psychopaths. They were utter. And I don't even think that's controversial. I mean, and so someone can be by appearance quite accomplished and look great and sound good and give speeches and be a great orator, but they're whatever it is that they've embraced, both publicly and privately, is completely warped. It's completely insane. And I think that Elizabeth Warren embraces some of those tendencies. Let's just put it that way. First of all, her entire life and her entire public life is a lie. It's a fraud. The most famous example, of course, is her claim to be Native American. Now, in order to get tenure at Harvard and in order to get a job at the University of Pennsylvania, and who knows what else. Now, recently, the Boston Globe did a puff piece on this. They're trying to help her get over it. They claim that they'd interviewed 30 people, none of whom are named, or one or two of them are named, that have claimed that Elizabeth Warren did not use this claim to get her job at Harvard. But you might notice that the Globe did not ask for her to release the documents that would pertain to this. I mean, her application, whether or not she checked off a box that claimed to be Native American. Harvard at the time was advertising that they were looking to hire professors of color. And it was coincidentally, that's when she was hired. But she has the right to not release that to the public. That's confidential information, and she's refused to do so. So this whole Boston Globe article is a complete phony because they didn't ask for that document. She didn't release it. So they can spin this thing all they want. The fact is that we're not going to know unless she does release it. And we should demand that she does. Furthermore, there were several scholarly journals, including the Fordham Journal and several others, who referred to Elizabeth Warren as a woman of color. And so, for them to now whitewash this and claim, oh, no, nobody thought of her as Native American and that she never used this is completely phony. But they're trying to set it up for her political future. But it goes deeper than that. It goes to just, her whole past. She was an upper middle class upbringing in Oklahoma City, but she claims to have been lower class. Her family had 3 cars. They were not rich, but they were fine. And she started her career by flipping properties in Oklahoma City, including a property that was of which the resident, her husband, was in Iraq, and she had a baby at home. And because she was 2 days late on her mortgage, Elizabeth Warren, working with a bank, seized the property and flipped it. So, this is how she made her original money. In Massachusetts, she was, then she goes on as a professor at Harvard and other places, working as an insider lawyer and making 6-figure incomes screwing people, whether it be the people who were victims of asbestos poisoning at John's Melville Company, I believe it's called. Elizabeth Warren represented the company so that these people would not be able to be compensated by the insurance company at the time. She basically removed the insurance company's liability by setting up a separate fund that would pay these people peanuts. These are people who are dead now, many of them. These are people who suffered from asbestos poisoning after contributing to an insurance plan their entire working life. And then the insurance plan pulled the rug out from under them when they needed coverage. She worked for Dow Chemical, again, getting us probably who knows how much money, in the 6 figures certainly, screwing women who had breast implants and whose breast implants were making them sick. A lot of these women very well may be dead now, so they can't testify from the grave. These are women. I thought that this was supposed to be a champion of women, Elizabeth Warren, right? Kennedy criticized her, Ted Kennedy, that is, for screwing over a union in a dispute, which she represented the company. So her career has been an establishment insider working for multinational corporations, the very people that she rails against by talking about the millionaires and the billionaires. And yet she's seen as a champion against these multinational corporations. She's worth $11 million, according to her tax return, I believe, from several years ago. And while at Harvard, of course, she more famously received $350,000 a year to teach one class. And her husband also receives about $350,000 a year to also teach one class. And they throw in a house on top of it for no charge or for like a 0 interest loan. And who knows what other benefits. Why would they give her these incredible gifts? It's because she's some kind of an insider. She knows how to work inside the government to get stuff done for Harvard. And yet she presents herself as a person representing, quote, the people. There are so many things I could get into. When she started running for the Senate, she got rid of her fancy car and got one that looks better. The woman is a complete fraud. Not only that, but she was apparently practicing her law, doing these cases while she wasn't even a member of the Massachusetts bar. So there's even questions about whether or not she was legally functioning as a lawyer, but that's okay. Everything for her gets passed over. And she's able to create this incredible phony image, this false image that is completely at variance with who she actually is. And when you listen to her talk, it's like she seems to have internalized this phoniness. She believes it herself. There's a delusion there that exceeds normal. Most of us will embellish our resume a bit here and there. We may leave off a few things that are unpleasant. That's a normal tendency to a certain extent. But, when you do it to the level that Elizabeth Warren does it, you cross a line. I mean, this is a complete fabrication. This woman is a complete fraud. And I think that it connotes perhaps not just and she does it because she knows she's going to be supported by the Boston Globe and all the liberals, and even they've held their nose at times with her. But it connotes a person who has some delusions, let's put it that way. I mean, I think that she has some mental disconnects. And I would also just point out that when you listen to her talk and you listen to her make these ridiculous claims, and it's not really rational. I mean, I'll just give another quick example. She gave an interview recently with a friendly reporter, his name escapes me right now, where she said that during the Eisenhower administration, I think he brought this up, this claim that income was taxed at 90%, which she went along with. And then she said that she turned around and said, I think that we only need to raise taxes by 50%. Now, can you imagine what that means? That means that if you're earning $20,000 a year, you're going to have to pay $10,000 in taxes and you're going to have to live on $10,000. I mean, that's insane. And the 90% charge, this is one of those memes that I heard emanating out of the left over the past years. No one's ever verified it. No one's ever looked at it. But think about how false that is. It's ridiculous. Can you imagine if you're paying 90% of your income in taxes, let's say you earned $100,000, that would mean that you would have paid $90,000 in taxes. And that's only federal, by the way. That's not even state. Let's say the state charges 3%. That's another 3, which means that you will be, after grossing $100,000, you will be living on $7,000 a year. Now, that's obviously false. It's complete BS. That never happened. But for her to go out and intone this and say, oh, no, I'll only raise it 50%. I mean, it's, oh, great. She's doing us all a favor. She's going to save us 40%. And for anyone, liberal, conservative, left, right, or center, to think that this is a good thing or this is sane, maybe it's not Elizabeth Warren who's insane. Maybe it's a big portion of this country that's insane, or maybe they've gone insane. That's another subject for another day. But I just want to talk a little bit about Elizabeth Warren right now because of this really nasty attack on President Trump, because of this phony, somebody published, the New York Times publishes this phony essay from an anonymous source. She's going to now demand that they implement the 25th Amendment. That's something that I hope that most people in this country, including people who don't like Trump, would reject, because we don't want to have a country like that. That's a coup d'etat, basically. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a